Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to a resumption of this very interesting discussion. We have, for the afternoon, Soufiane Ben Moussa from Canada, who is the Chief He's Chief of Application Architecture and Development, House of Commons in Canada. I can say from my brief visits and what I've read of the reports, they're doing some fascinating things there, and they have been doing them, perhaps most importantly, for a long time. And Soufiane is one of the key architects, as it says in his title, of that whole process. So I look forward to what he has to say, and I told him that regardless of the title of the session, he should just tell us whatever he wants to tell us. Soufiane.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to share. Thank you all of you who shared with us this morning and yesterday, and I look forward for the coming 2 days. It's very, very interesting. My colleague from Italy earlier said it's very tough to separate you from lunch. I can tell you also it's extremely tough to bring you back from lunch, especially for the European people. And I hope that I'll have your full attention. Then don't take it personal. I will try to shock you just to wake you up. It's good also to be speaking at the end of the day because I heard a lot of what I'm about to say. Thank you. You said what I need to say. Then I will try to say something else. Then I will say a lot of things that they are not in my presentation. Then the subject is XML, and about 11 years ago, I was working with my boss at the time, and every year in February, we meet with the clients. It's a hectic month in February. That's why we decided to come to this conference. It's the end of the fiscal year. Then before the 31st of March, we have to finish everything because otherwise we lose money. All the money we don't spend, we give it back. And at the same time, we have to plan for the project that they're starting the 1st of April. Then the same scenario, we have the clients who come and trying to give us a requirement. And that's 1999. And I think a couple of days ago, yesterday, somebody spoke about the bug of year 2000 and why a crisis is a good opportunity for innovation. And indeed it was. Because at the same time, in the city of Ottawa, any deputy minister who don't have a big project in IT, then he's outdated. Then they need a big problem. And in our case, we needed a much bigger problem because our boss need to be the best. Then that's why we decided to scrap all the system we have and start from scratch. And literally, we have 9 systems who manage the process of the parliament from a procedural perspective, committee, house, publishing, everything. And we propose that all these systems are heading nowhere. I'm telling you this story because I think it's very interesting in the sense that we started from scratch. Then for those who are starting from scratch, I think it's important to understand that it's a long journey. That it's a journey that will require a lot of support from senior management and from politicians. And if you lose that support any time in the road, you collapse. Then it's not about adopting an XML standard. It's about to have the same good vision shared about all your institution. It's about to have the proper steps, proper funding, proper attention and support from the clerk and all the clerks' communities. And after that, you have to walk the talk and you have to deliver value. Then in 1999, we never spoke about open parliament. We never said that we're going to spend a cent to share our information and make it easier for people to reuse. We simply told them that if they don't do anything, all their system will collapse and they will not be able to function anymore. That's the only way we got their attention. We never told them that we need to build every software because they wanted us to buy. And I think that's today, if I have to redo it from scratch, I will try to buy as much as I can. Parliament, they don't exist to build software. Parliament exists to be efficient and to support member of Parliament in their mission. Then today, as the chief architect of the House of Commons, I established some rules and some principles. The first one of them is to reuse what we have. And I wish at the end of this conference or this new relationship, the word we have is not only the House of Commons of Canada, it's all of us collectively. What do we have and what can we reuse? And the second, if we don't have it, then what can we buy? And the word buy, when you say buy, you expect a level of service. You expect that you're going to share the headache with somebody else. Then you cannot say, I'm going to buy to solve a problem and you own the whole headache yourself. Then that's very important in how to buy. Then sometimes some product exists, but you still decide to develop them because essentially you are just buying a portion of the problem and you are not solving your problem. And we have a principle that say that we will develop only what make us and what respond to our strategic objectives. And our strategic objective of today is to reduce our operational cost by 10% within the next 3 years. Then whatever we can do to do that, we're going to do it. Then let me come back to 1999, how we sold this to the clerks now. The clerks, their biggest nightmare is to produce the publication as fast as they can to go home and not spend the night there. In year 1999, for those who are from, understand what's the word filibuster mean, it's a mean of the opposition to block the process of the parliament. And one of the best technique is to propose amendments for any bill, and for every word to propose one amendment. There is, at the time, 280 members. Then for every word on the bill, there is 280 amendment. They have to draft it, publish it, and pass it through the process. And while the bill is not passed, then nobody go home. Then we promised them that we will solve that problem. We promised them that the government will not be able to block the process of parliament, the opposition actually at that time, using these techniques. Then, going back to XML, XML I think today is a must, is not an option, like HTML, like having a website, okay? And we discussed about it a couple of times, and I think I've been misunderstood. I think semantic information is very important because it's the only way to link what I call the islands. XML alone will do nothing. XML without structured data managed and structured record managed, that they are not necessarily in XML, they are in traditional databases, okay, will do miracles and will allow you to be much more agile. And I will prove that to you in a couple of seconds. Then today, 10 years later, and $30 million invested later, every information asset we have in the Parliament of Canada, in the House of Commons of Canada, very important because there are 3 institutions in the House of Commons, the House, the Library, and the Senate. And unfortunately, we are sharing with a couple of other Parliament our assets, but not with the Senate. It's a question of independence. Then every information asset that supports the business of the House, that means everything except finance and HR, is either in a record, in a database, or in an XML fragment that is also saved in a database. And all of them are searchable using search technologies that come either from the database environment or from search technology that we use, in this case, I will not name. If you want to ask me later, I will tell you. All this coupled with a series of what I call productivity tools, the Office Suite and document management and other things for those boundary information that they are not official record, but they are used in various phases of the creation of the official record. Then the title I called Open Document, but I think Open Document without open protocols are, again, owning the information without having an open way to share that information is, again, very useless. And for many years, the big challenge was to make our information reusable, and our measurement is how many times this information is reused, okay? And to enforce that, we created a program of custodianship, and every time somebody reuses information, they have to go through this process, and they have to establish what we call an agreement of sharing of the information. That way we can track the number and we can architect around that. Then we're going to speak today about protocol for greater transparency also. Next. Then in 2001, the 11th of September 2001, everybody in this room know what happened. And that was the launch date of our new XML Hansard platform. And we spent 2 years with experts in XML defining what a Hansard will contain. It just took 2 minutes for the president to tell us we have to send a special Hansard to the Congress of the United States, and you're going to do it differently, and this is how we want it to look. And thanks God that we adopted XML, because it took us 1 hour to do what was totally impossible to do. They wanted to put more content that is not transcribed. Then it was very fast and very good to demonstrate the agility that XML will enable in your organization. Then for us, we adopted XML to be more agile. For us, we adopted XML to be able to respond to needs of members that we don't even know at the time. The big challenge in 2000 that I don't believe should be the same challenge today was to find people who are expert in XML. But even bigger challenge is to have the right people around the table from the business to sit down and agree about what a Hansard should look like. Then if we're going to work, today I think having an expert in XML, most probably you're going to easily find, but finding the right business people to sit down, describe what a Hansard is, and agree about it, that's a bigger challenge. It took a long time. Don't never underestimate that. Or bringing 50 different committee clerks to agree about how they're going to write the notice. They used to type them in Word, and now they have to do it consistently. That's a nightmare. Or bringing translators who are covered with 3 different unions to agree about how they're going to translate this and that. That's another big challenge. Then when we implemented XML, in year 2000, every technician is cost $1,000 a day anyway. Then XML expert, they were expensive at the time. We used to make a joke, for the X is expensive markup language. But this is very disturbing. But bringing the business to accept to use XML was even a bigger challenge. Then I can tell you some stories. The Hansard Union, there is three levels of grievances. Okay, the first level is between the employee and his manager. The second between the employee and the legal counsel of the parliament, and the third is between the employee and the court of labor. Okay, typically we have one case that go to the court every 5 to 6 years. When we released PRISM, we got 4 of them. One from the editor, one from the translator, one from the legal counsel, all of them. And all of them, they went into level 3. Then when you say union going to bring you to the court, you are not at the mercy of defending your case. You are at the mercy of your boss dropping the ball, or a politician to call and say, you know what, stop it, I don't want to go there. Then if you don't have the proper support, and if you don't put the proper change management mechanism in place to adopt XML or to change the way people work, okay, you are literally playing with fire. And so many times we have been fortunate that every Wednesday morning, I have the CIO and the clerk, we sit down and we speak about progress, and every Wednesday morning they supported us during the 2 years. Until one, on appelle ça in French, virage, okay, a turning point, where suddenly people, end user, start to speak about XML. And now you are in trouble because they speak about something they don't really understand totally, okay, but they adopted it, and now they see the value. And one of the union conflict, I remember that, okay, we said we're gonna call the bluff. I said, okay, we're gonna put the old system back, and we're gonna stop this. And the old system was a VAX-based text editor where the transcriber need to know codes, and they type those codes, *B for bold, and so on and so forth. Well, it took 24 hours to receive a letter from the union saying, no, don't do that, we want to stay with the new system. And that's what I call the turning point. And suddenly now, they started to see the benefit. It took really about 6 to 7 years before real business people started to understand the value of XML and started to innovate with that. And as long as you don't get to that point, there is no need for us IT people trying to innovate on their behalf. We can sell idea, we can realize things, but at the end of the day, they are the people that need to embark and play the game with you. Then you can see in front of you, in 2002, we have released the builds in XML, and some of the colleagues here, they have participated in helping us. Industry have played a big role. I don't think without industry, we will be where we are today, okay? As you know, we are, at that juncture, we are converting paper to digital paper. We are not going more than that. Then the whole machinery of Parliament work around paper, work around line number, work around page number. When you draft an amendment, you say that line number from 1 to 5 be changed as follows. Then if you don't have the concept of line number, which is a paper-oriented concept, you cannot work, literally. In 2006, we started showing the value of XML, and we started now linking the island, allowing people to search using the database and to go to the data island that they are structured in XML. I have some couple of demos that I will show to you in a few seconds. In 2009, a member of parliament from the NDP came to the board requesting that all the votes be released. And that same member was expecting that technology will tell them it's going to take millions and time and all that stuff. It took us exactly 48 hours to make it available. Then XML is an enabler to respond to needs that you never thought you will do. We've never done XML to release votes at the time. And votes, they are not in XML. Votes are in the database. They are only presented in the Hansard. But our Hansard is not what we used to do in the past. The whole factory of the parliament used to work to produce a paper document. That paper document, starting 2002, became a byproduct of an information management factory. Then they don't focus in that product anymore. They are working, capturing event, capturing information. At the end of the day, there are some business rules we apply, extract the information from many sources, create an XML schema with it, convert it to PDF, and put it on the web and call it Hansard. But there are many other products now that we are using. We used to have the index, where the index people find a subject, it's printed, and it tells you which page that subject is. We converted that index to access and retrieval parliamentary information. And now you are really searching a rich layer of metadata that it's not in XML, and thanks God that is not in XML, because that information evolved. What you have in this paragraph today, it's a fight in South Asia, okay? In 5 years down the road, maybe that paragraph have a totally different meaning, and that meaning evolve on time. Then there is a whole now set of controlled vocabulary and associated thesaurus and all that stuff, where whole group, they used to index paper, they don't do that anymore. Now they manage the controlled vocabulary and the thesaurus. There are other people who use that thesaurus every night. They read the Hansard, they read committee evidence, and they simply create links between a paragraph and a word in the controlled vocabulary. When you search, you're not searching the text. You are searching the controlled vocabulary. Okay? And with that technique, it allowed us also from one word, we can go to multiple products, the Hansard, committee reports, votes, you name it. Any record you can tag, you can search and find. By 2011, Hansard, committee evidence, and bill released it in XML to public. It took us, you know how much time to do that? It's the time to add a logo on the pages. Because we always published in XML, but we are not just releasing the link. All that we've done, we added a photo that have XML, and when you click on it, you access the document. Then everything we own in XML, we already publish in XML. And I think I spoke the challenges during this exercise. The business are focusing on the information presentation. Their lack of interest in information semantic. As a matter of fact, we've been called, one of the translators said, are you converting me to a tagger? That means a person who do tags, okay? Then especially a translator who's paid by the word. Now you are asking that translator who is paid by the word to spend more time to translate the same text to give you value. Then that's challenges that we got. And it was very difficult to show them the benefit. It's only starting 2006 that they started to see the complete benefit of adopting XML. Of course, XML bring some level of complex work environment. Again, 10 years later, I can give you an example that for the last 5 years, lawyers, they never wanted to draft bills in XML, okay? Then I think Neil have presented a tool. We use the same tool. We use Word and that technology called Smart Tags. And we created some kind of a Word application to allow them to do thanks God, only the private member bills that they never passed first reading. Then it was less of an issue. But surprisingly enough, one of the senior lawyer now making a big case, and this same senior lawyer, she used to work in justice, and in justice for the last 10 years, they were using XML for drafting bills. And just to discover that the resistance is happening from our staff who are now have a job of converting Word to XML, and if the lawyers start working directly in XML, they see it as a threat to their job. then that's another difficulty that you have to be cautious about when you adopt these productivity tools or efficiency. The resistance can come from many levels, from senior management up to the publisher. I spoke about this, but I will speak about reducing operation costs. Then 10 years later, in the beginning we are speaking, we will reduce, but concretely you can ask me the question, what you reduced. Well, we reduced at least 15 employees that they use to spend time converting text and publishing. That's for certain. But also, since 2001, we got 4 minority government. And minority government, for those who understand the parliament very well, as you do, I suppose, they work in committees. Then the number of meetings in committees skyrocketed. The number of committees and plus the number of meetings, okay, skyrocketed. We believe, because we have the PRISM platform, that we've been able to respond within the expected SLAs without exception for the last 10 years, for those without adding any clerk or any staff member. Then in that area, there is no increase of staff at all, but there is an increase on business. The time also that we publish, we used to publish the journal notice or the paper never before midnight, 1 a.m. Since now, if they stay 1 hour later than the house rises, it's a big problem. Within 1 hour, everything is completed after the house stops sitting. And we've been able to respond to many various new needs and embrace new technology. I will show you some proof of concept that we are developing for the iPad platform. And again, the cost of development is going to be extremely low, okay, because our information sources are independent of the platform or the application or technology used with. For those, this is one of, we see ourselves integrators. We don't see ourselves an industry of application development. We see ourselves as a value-added integrator of product, and in rare occasion, we're gonna extend those products. Then what you see in front of you, okay, it's a unique app. It's a House of Commons application, okay, for transcription. What you see on the left side, those are coming from the database and called the events. Then the whole structure is structured in the very 3 macro data element. One called a person, called an affiliation, which is a person playing a role for somebody. The second is called an event. An event is something happening somewhere in a date. And the other one called document. And document is something we produce or something we consume in an event. The whole platform is based on these three data element or data entities. Then if you see on the left side there, you see things, a tree coming from a database. In the right side, the top, you see an audio player, and that's a component that we bought, okay? And that integrates with our audio recording infrastructure and allows the transcriber to be more efficient, skipping and doing everything they need from an audio perspective. They can listen to French, English, interpretation, all that stuff. And the third, where you see the XML, that's XMetal embedded into our app, and that's one of the parameters why we have chosen XMetal. We wanted to buy an XML authoring tool that we can embed in various contexts, in various applications. Just to tell you, the initial cost I don't remember, but it cost us $10,000 a year for maintenance for about 300 users. Then if you cost it per user, it's about $300 per user. That's not the biggest spending. I told you earlier that we spent about $30 million during the last 12 years to implement the whole platform. From the $30 million, there is about $250,000, $300,000 in licensing cost, which is what? 10%, 1%. Okay, that's software. The only area where it's costly is for the video, okay, and there's a whole platform, an asset management platform for video. And video being video, you need a lot of storage, and even there we are changing in the coming year. Then, where's the majority of the spending happening? The majority of spending happening is in the implementation cost. The implementation cost of this and business transformation and process renewal and process reengineering and running the show, okay, that's where the money is being spent. Maintenance of all this, when you have it, the good news, you're going to have it, the bad news, you have it. You have now to maintain it and all that stuff. As I told you, that XML editor, you see a record here. Unfortunately, I cannot go far from this microphone. But this area here, that's a record, normal record. Then it looks like a VB6 because that's a VB6 app. Since 1999, we have migrated this platform already to twice, and we are in the third level of migration. This is an old picture, but it looks more modern today. It can be a web app, whatever you care. At the end, that is not XML. That's a record in a database with relationship, and you name it. In that record, there are two fields. Those two fields contain a fragment of XML, and when you double-click in that record field, it opens for you the XML editor, which is XMetal in this case. Then, the third one, this is the end product, an example of the Hansard. I don't know if you can see it from there, but if you see, you're going to see numbers. Those numbers are the record locator of every entity in the database. Then, if you are in the database, you want to go to the text, you use those record locator. If you are in the text, you want to go back to the database, you use those record locator. Then there is a bridge, there is a link between the two. And I think that's very important. Then when you're going to do your information architecture, all this consideration need to be taken into place. Because if you lower the quality of the product or the usability of the products, okay, if you're going to really need to do these links, then you just don't only need XML, you need XML, you need databases with right quality, you need interfaces to interfere with these databases and insert reference to them. End user, they never see this version. XML is not for end user. That's why it's called machine readable. Now, the theme of my presentation is preservation. As you see, I've never used the word preservation. Okay? Then, if preservation is about having access to the raw data, then XML is the perfect product. But Joan from the UK Parliament showed you earlier a document from 600 years ago, and you can bet that there is no tags there. And you can bet that anybody who opened them will know exactly what these documents are about. And then is preservation is about the information or about the structure of the information? And is this number mean anything for an end user? This number will mean anything for the end user if the end user is a techie, have access to that database, and that database is available 100 years down the road. Otherwise, they're numbers linking to something. Then preservation go much beyond putting the data in XML. Preservation also goes beyond preserving the technology used to manipulate the data, preserving the business rules used to present that data, and bringing those technology and information from one era to the other. I can tell you XML will give you at least 13 years because we have 13 years now in XML. And the other thing, the technology is evolving very, very much. And I believe that our parliament is a very active parliament. We sit about 150 days a year, and we have a lot of meetings, a lot of stuff. I think with the technology as it is today, okay, if I remove the video, I can use any technology, even open source SQL, to maintain enough for 100 years. Now, assuming those technology survive 100 years, and if they don't, then you have to port that information and that structure from one place to the other. Now, we work with the National Archive, and National Archive, they are being hit with this new reality of the big data problem. And they are really moving from the traditional archivic techniques going somewhere else. Now, I'm meeting with the National Archiver end of March, and he sent me an email, and he's speaking about reference model, and we want to adopt the your parliamentary model as the reference model for this kind of data. What that mean to us, I don't know yet. Most probably next time I can share that with you. But I read between the lines that he wants us to preserve this for them. They just understood that they cannot preserve everything anymore. Okay? They cannot copy the internet. They don't have the energy to do that, nor the technology to do it. This is some numbers, okay? Then let's move to another subject, because it's part of the title that Mr. Cassini told me to cover. Then I'm not the expert on this. I think a lot of you expert, but I said that if we're going to speak about achieving greater transparency, what is transparency, and it comes back to three big themes to get to the transparency and participation. Okay, because you can be transparent, but if nobody use your and participate with you, then you are transparent for yourself. It's useless. Seamless integration. If you want to be transparent, it's not about making the data available. It's to be able to integrate and mash your data with other data sets coming from somewhere else that you don't know. Then you want to make yourself seamlessly integratable with others. And it's all about relationship and collaboration. And I think this is the theme of this conference today, is relationship and collaboration, because you cannot say there is a standard before we agree about a standard, and the standard is not a standard before we start using it. It's not when we published in a nice paper, it's when we start using it. Then if we go say, okay, I'm not elected. We have a culture, I don't know in your parliament, but in our parliament, when we are not elected, we don't play the elected. We are there as servant to help the elected people do their work. Then transparency is not my domain. It's the elected people domain. I'm there to enable it for them if they decide to be transparent. And that's why I underline the word they. Then in this case, I'm going to test my glasses. Enable parliamentarian when they want to improve government transparency and openness by identifying any gaps to be filled in adopting a complete suite of standards to enable open government information and ease the goal of linkable public sector information. This information, I didn't invent it. I think I researched it either from Gartner or from Wikipedia or somewhere. But I think it's very true. We are there to make this possible. We are not there to become transparent. And we shall never try to be the transparent people. It's them if they want to be transparent. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Then the other one, then enable parliamentarian. How technology can help transparency and participation. Enable parliamentarian when they want to increase the citizen participation, okay, in identifying and adopting new channels. And this is two examples how they voted.ca and openparliament.ca are two very good examples where we made it easy for other people to make that possible. And the last one, how technology teams can help identify ways to increase citizen and business of e-government services, get information and benefit. And really the three words, okay, it's much easier to speak about how to save time, money, and how to make things more simpler than trying to implement transparency. And I think with XML and with all this technology, yes, we can save money for people and make things more efficient. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to show you 2 or 3 examples. Oops. There. Last slide was about what is our next plan. And our next plan, we are seriously looking for this open data protocol. And it's about exposing all the data that we have in our databases using an open data protocol. Now, it's an open data protocol supported by Microsoft, sorry. The competitor of this one is called GData. It's an open data protocol supported by Google. But this is real. This is real stuff because there are real applications now, platform and producer, who are adopting it, okay, and using it, and people are exist. Then for one of the example will be Netflix, for those who know Netflix. And if you notice, Netflix is the platform that is available in any kind of device, iPad, iPhone, Apple TV, the 3 Apples, but it exists also in other many. You can get it in any TV now. Yeah, and why? Because they are exposing all their database using the open data protocol. Yesterday we said that this is one example. I can spend a lot of time on it, but just to show you how things link together now. This is a bill, and I can go to that bill and go more details on that bill, and I can see in the right here. I'm trying to find the votes. As you see, I'm not good navigating. But anyway, yesterday we said that the votes are not. No, the votes are available. They are available by member of parliament, you can get to the information from anywhere you are. That's, you can go to the website and play with it. The other last thing I want to show you, I don't have it in my laptop because it's a laptop. This is a proof of concept. And again, this one now is using the open data protocol to expose data in an iPad app. And this is a PowerPoint presentation of it, but then you can see here now from a member of parliament, you can go and see the top 10 subjects that member of parliament speak about. And you see whenever you see that subscribe, essentially, that's a REST-based open data XML stream that you can connect to it, and that stream will exist forever. It have a unique URI. It will never change even if we restructure our website. And if you want to expose it, you can expose it. This is for that member. You can see we don't speak about Hanser anymore. That's the concrete intervention that Hanser made. And from there, you can go to video, audio. This is another concept we are working on it, which will look something like this. I'm going to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. So many questions, so little time. The floor is open.
But for a beer tonight, I can answer more questions.
Daniel, please.
Just a small question. You mentioned you describe a system which is a composite system made of some database use and XML use. In my naivety, I am not an XML person. I thought that when people were going XML, they were going XML all the way, you know?
Why?
And can you explain the trade-off, how you decided the way you've chosen to go?
First, why? It's not a religion, okay? It's simply a tool, okay? Second, why we decided, because I have, I'm going to use the number of today, but because I have 60 engineers who are expert in databases, and I want to leverage that knowledge, because there is a big industry in database, and databases, they exist for the last 30 years, and they are efficient and doing their job. Because I need databases for other things, then I have that infrastructure. I'm going to re-leverage it. I'm not going to buy something new. And because more and more there is a conversion between databases and XML databases, I think this subject was a very hot subject in early 2000. But today, with the monster company like Microsoft, Oracle, and others, a lot of the needed or the argument why you will buy an XML repository are less and less important. Yes, of course, you can go to the best of breed system. You can go to the best system, but after that, you have to think about supporting that technology. You have to hire people. You have to operate that technology. And in a parliament, there are many other things. I have 450 applications, and then I need to reduce my total cost of ownership. That's why.
Fabio.
I guess that this person's questions actually creates additional and deeper questions in my mind, if you don't mind. I guess that my worry or my problem, concern would be not why skipping the database completely, about which I completely agree with you, but it seems obvious to me that doubling the focus of data management, content in XML and data in database, creates a sort of a complex architecture. And you have to give one of the two technologies the power, the control over the other. And you have decided to go with basically database, so that basically the XML, as far as I understand, is the container of the text, but everything is organized around a set of complex database tables and so on. If that is correct, if this is how I see it, then in what sense? So, and you have this problem of preservation that implies preserving not just the data, but also the software and the systems and possibly even the hardware for a long time. I'm wondering if you consider whether this could be due to the fact that you are using technologies that were not made for long-term preservation, but rather for fast response time, such as databases.
I think at the end of the day it's a philosophical debate, because even what we call XML repository is a certain type of technology using different technique to access the data and store it in the disk. We can spend more time about it. We can take a coffee about it also, because I will be separating people from coffee. I agree and disagree with you, Fabio. I will tell you simply that we just proved, I don't think we made things more complex, and we just proved that we can survive with one of the two during 10, 15 years. Now, if I'm going to give you other scenarios, okay, and I see Timothy have raised his hand. Now, if your business problem is a bit different, where your main goal is to take XML and to integrate XML into it and to change things, then most probably you want to go to an XML database and XML infrastructure. But as I said earlier, in my case, I have other problems. I have an ERP system that imposes to me a huge infrastructure database, then I'm leveraging that. I cannot say today I'm going to replace all of what I have. Then I have to grow with what I do have. But we can discuss about it. Can give you more details. We have find straight balance between the two. We are not, we are storing XML in database, but we are using specialized XML technology also to search that information. We use FAST also and things like that.
So, but Tim and then Monica.
Yeah, I have to declare my interest here because I sell an XML database product. But
that's why I said I have to support you.
There are a couple of issues there that I want to address. First of all, if you slice and dice your XML document and stick it into a database of any kind, whether it's an XML database or Oracle or SQL Server or whatever, you have to be able to glue it back together, and unless you've got the software to glue it back together, you are stuck. Whereas if you have a system that can handle a large document and store a large document, you export the large document out and put it in the next system that you buy in 5, 10, 20 years, whenever your technology is renewed. So the argument about not keeping your XML as an XML document, I think, doesn't really satisfy that preservation requirement that we're sort of at least nominally talking about. But the other issue, I think, is if you slice and dice your document, you are sort of predetermining how you're going to repackage that document, whereas if you keep the entire document together, you can pull the pieces out as you need to when you want to create a new artifact anyway. So it's, when you do the slicing and dicing, doesn't really matter.
Well, I think that's the point. I don't have a document anymore. And really, we deviated totally. The whole process in the past used to work to produce a document. That document became a report. It's not obsolete. Hansard don't mean nothing. What's important, there is a member of parliament who spoke in this meeting from 10 to 10:05, and this is what they said. And that's what we save in the database, what he said. And that's in XML. It's not just fragment, it's rich XML, okay? Then later, we want to create a document called Hansard. Well, that's a report. But we can create something else that have nothing to do with the document to do something else, okay? Then, yes, if your main goal is to digitize paper and to work in a document-centric information architecture, XML repository is the way to go. And in some scenario, in some use cases, you don't have choice. But if your goal is to have a whole information management platform that the concept of document is obsolete on it, because what's a document? Is it a video fragment? Is it a document that we received from the web? Is it, then what's important is more the event and the person who did the event and the attribute around that event. Then you'll say, I need a database at that stage, and maybe I will never produce a document. In many cases, we don't.
Except that the primary product of a parliament is acts and bills.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I agree with you.
That part at the cover. We have Monica, we have Mauro, and we have Daniel, and then I think we need to move on to the next panel. Monica?
Okay, from my point of view, preservation means also legal preservation. I mean, we are talking about a parliamentary document, and such a part of such a document has a legal efficacy, legal validity, expresses some effect under the legal point of view. So I'm quite concerned about the fact that the document doesn't exist, but exists only a record inside of the database. So my question is, how can you preserve in your approach the legal validity after 10 years, 20 years, when we need in such a way to prove what a parliament approves in a form of the document? I rewarding a little bit. In such a document, there are paragraph indentation underlining that has a legal semantic meaning, not only presentation stuff. So the question here is, in your approach, how can preserve the legal validity of these over the time?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. XML is not legal. I cannot present XML in a court. What we present is the signed copy tabled at the house. And unfortunately, today is still paper. Then for legal perspective, and even for legal perspective, you just it's not about us. Actually, if anybody, 50 years down the road, okay, if any good lawyer prove that I just generated this document, okay, from XML that is well formed and stored in an XML repository, and created this paper PDF version in front of a judge, most probably I will lose my case, and the judge say this document is not the official version, okay? Because they can question the validity of the technology that we produced. Today, XML is, as I said, XML is not a legal preservation. I cannot go to court and bring XML in a USB key. I have to bring a printed copy signed by the president, or I have to bring a PDF that is encrypted and signed by a private key of the president. That's the only way today. Then the presentation is very important. I agree with you, okay? It's not the semantic, it's the presentation that derives the semantic in the court. Then when they see that redlining, all that stuff, the judge say, oh, this is an amended act and all that stuff. It's not because there is a tag called this is an amendment, okay? Because that tag, this is an amendment, is a House of Commons tag, is not mean nothing for a judge. Then that's, today then for archival purposes, I will say today's PDF is most probably the safest route. And then just to complete, then every night before whatever, somebody press on a button, create that PDF, okay, create that HTML and create many other things, and that PDF is stored in a secure place and become the version of Hansard that we published that day. And that's the PDF we send the print shop and send it to the library and the archive center. We don't send the XML. Then we persist that version that day.
Apologize for cutting off this interesting discussion. We do need to move on.
Yeah.
Mauro, we have two more, Mauro and Daniel, and then we must move on to the next panel. We can continue later.
Yes. I really appreciated your presentation and your approach. I would like to know how you have integrated multimedia material that you have in this architecture, because this, I think, now it's a key point for me in this moment for in my parliament. The multimedia material is growing very fast.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, it's a very important question. Then, just to make the response very short, the whole system is based on one master clock, the same master clock used for the video. All the video is tagged with the time, and any word you see there is also linked to a time. That at any time you can go from the video to the text or from the text to the video using the time clock. That's what you, and now that's the beauty of it, and that's where the semantic layer that is separated from the content become even more interesting, because now suddenly I can mine the video, and maybe one day I don't need to transcribe anymore. Maybe we can question, do we still need the Hansard? If everybody can search the video, if everybody can preserve that video for much longer, okay, then I think 5 to 10 years from now, video will be the primary used product, because now it will be on mobile devices and searchable, and we can tag it and we can index it and we can do everything with it that we do with paper.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Daniel, last question. Permission is without objection, so ordered.
So my question is more of a comment, and I'll give you a beer later, but you sort of quickly said you created URIs or URLs that through the open data protocol, or however you're getting it for the iPad app, or assume it's for the website. What do you think of, first of all, did you think a lot about how they were created and how they would be used internally and externally by civil society folks?
First, the open data protocol is our future. Is not. Then we are researching that. We are trying to expose all our data using open data protocols, and I think if we do it with this open data protocol, we'll be able easily to expose in other protocol and REST-based. One of the major problems that we have in the past is that when people reuse our content, we feel like stranded because we don't want to break their investment. Then how can we allow people to reuse our content without restricting ourselves from evolving? And the only way is to give them some kind of a pointer, a URI, which is very basic actually, if you see the protocol, that never changed. Then we're going to need to manage that internally. We're going to need to create that ID and never changed, okay? And that ID need to be unique and all that stuff. I don't know how they will use it, or if they even use it.
Thank you very much. Conversations just get better and better. May I call to the dais our next speakers, Ms. Candia and Mr. Seidler. Good morning. Are you going to use this?
Yes, completely. Yes.
So it is Seidler. Thank you. We have our first speaker is Elena Candia, Program Manager of the IT Department in the Chamber of Deputies, the Camera dei Deputati.
Chamber of Deputies.
Thank you.
First of all, I hope to be clear in spite of my terrible Roman English. But I'm very pleased to be here and to have the opportunity of
Mike.
present our innovative solution regarding the use of the introduction of open linked data in the Chamber of Deputies. So, with this my short presentation, I will try to describe how we in Italy and in Chamber of Deputies have moved from the use of our XML to introducing the open linked data and semantic web technology within the IT system of the Chamber of Deputies. We strongly are convinced that the key initiative for toward the transparency is the use of linked open data as an evolution of the use of XML. So, what is the reality? Like any other parliament in Chamber of Deputies, we manage a large volume of data and documents, and we make them accessible through our site, our Italian site. But at this level, if we consider the rating coined by Tim Berners-Lee concerning the openness. Only publishing data is the first star level. So we can manage and publish information and data and documents concerning the activity of the parliaments. So we publish information on proceedings and how the deputy votes, and we can update all this data every day. And we can also present not only HTML page, but also XML document. But we think that it is not enough. Why? For example, we in Chamber Deputy publish in our site some open documents in XML, like the summary of the sittings in Assembly, the verbatim reports, the amendments, other parliamentary acts, and all these contents we can say are machine readable, and this is a good step toward transparency. But also, if we publish document in XML, we can rate only the third star according with the rating coined by Tim Berners-Lee. Tim Berners-Lee is the actual director of W3C. So for us, this situation is not enough, because the information we publish are machine readable, but a human interpretation is needed. Such information are not completely machine comprehensible. For example, if we publish the term Napoli, we can know if Napoli is referred to the deputy whose surname is Napoli, or the city of Naples. So the matter is to add meaning to the information, such as not only human, but also system software can understand what we publish. So this is the reason that led to the introduction of the new technology able to offer machine comprehensible contents and data. And our goal is to add a meaning to the contents in the web in order to let also computers be able to do intelligent search, to elaborate and to combine data with the aim of offering a more satisfactory, consistent result. So for us, the solution is to begin to do more semantic web. Because the data resources in the web are huge and dynamic, and are also used both by user and computer and software application, metadata resources are critical for enabling effectiveness in web communication. The concept of semantic web was built on the basis established by a general metadata model, RDF, that is the Resource Description Framework, which is intended to describe and referencing resources in the web communication and includes an XML-based syntax. Tim Berners-Lee defined semantic web 2 years ago, as a web where the context of contents is defined by data, a web capable of reading and understanding content and context. In that occasion, Tim Berners-Lee coined the term of open linked data that refers to a set of best practice for publishing and connecting structured data on the web, and it outlined a set of rules for publishing data in the web on a way that all publishing data can become part of a global system of data. So we moved towards linked data in Italy. The availability of the XML metadata allow us to do so, because it is the basis. Metadata in XML is the basis, and our aim is to begin to set out our data also as open linked data. Today, the technology is available because we use XML as a language. Then we use RDF as a grammar. With RDF, we can define a concept, relation between the concept and metadata of a concept. And with RDF schema, we define relation between in the hour soft of information. Then we need an ontology that makes sense to the concept. OWL is an extension of RDF, ontology web language, and with OWL we defined the ontology that describe our specific domain of interest. Both RDF and OWL are standard defined by W3C. Then we must use an URI to uniquely identify each resources. And then the query language for these resources modeled with RDF is Sparkle. A little bit concept concerning RDF. RDF, first of all, is a metadata model, which is intended to for describing and referencing resources in web communication, and includes, of course, an XML-based syntax. In an RDF-based model, data model, knowledge is expressed by statement. A statement is represented by a triple made by subject, predicate, and object. With a triple, that is the minimal information in this model, we represent data, concept, and attribute of each resource. For this example, Pier Ferdinando Casini was born. This is a predicate in a city, and the triple is represented by a graph. In a schema, we describe a conceptual relation between resources. For example, a deputy is a member of a parliamentary group, or a deputy is referred to a mandate, and so on. So all information and all the classes and properties are described with in a simple three-element information. To make sense to our concept, we defined a specific ontology. The name of our ontology is OCD, an ontology of member of deputies. It can be represented like as a graph, through a graph. I can show just unable. For example, in our ontology, and these are some of the concepts of our ontology, we represent a deputy and the relation between deputy and, for example, parliamentary group and mandate and position. And for example, the assembly is in relation with a debate and with a sitting. A debate is in relation with the act and document and so on. In this manner, we conceptualize all the information we manage in our specific domain of interest. I have to go down. The ontology, the ontology must be subjected to changes and adjustment in time to perfectly fit the abstract model it represents. And the semantic web standard is used respecting the guiding principle of the linked data in order to assure that all the information or part of them can be reused in different contexts and by external user. For us, this is a real step towards transparency. Regarding the 5-star rating system, I can mention what are the rating, the level. The first rating is make available in the web information. Make available information in the web by an open license, of course. But it doesn't matter what format are the data. They can be also image or other format. The matter is that the data must be available in the web. At the second level, the data and document and information must be available as machine-readable structured data. As the third level, for example, at the same level, we have to prefer an Excel table rather than a scan of the table. At the third level, the format of this data must be non-proprietary. So we have to use not an Excel format, but, for example, a CSV format. The fourth level require then we use open standard format defined by W3C, RDF, and Sparkle. And finally, the last level require that our resources, defined with this grammar, is linked with other resources in the web. In Chamber of Deputies, we are publishing open linked data respecting the 5 stars rate. This is a little slide with the synthesis of the difference between open data and linked open data. Open data are available in the web, in open format and achieve transparency and sharing. Linked open data make every resources identified by a unique identification in the web, and use standard RDF Sparkle, and it permits reuse by other user, persistence and flexibility. In our new system, we use standard vocabulary. These are used to describe resources and when available. This vocabulary integrate our ORCD ontology. For instance, we use metadata of Dublin core for describing web resource. We use a bio vocabulary that provide concept, classes, and metadata for biographical information. And lastly, we use the FOAF vocabulary, friend of a friend, to link people. FOAF is the same vocabulary used by a lot of social networks, for example, Facebook on the other. With a property of all, that is all same as, we link our resources with other resources in the web. The description of resources can be obtained incrementally by dereferencing the URI of resources via HTTP protocol. So all same as is the all property to do that, because it asserts then two given names or identify, in this case a URI, refer to the same concept, to the same individual or entity. We use in a specific geonames to link our resource referring place with the geoname, the name of the same place in the open data linked external, and use also this property to link person and other resources to the same concept in DBpedia. DBpedia is the basis of Wikipedia. This is a little comparison between a traditional XML and the serialization of an RDF in XML. RDF can be serialized also in XML syntax. Another kind of serialization of RDF are notation tree, or JSON, or Turtle. In this case, we describe the same concept. In this case, is Pier Ferdinando Casini, a deputy, and you can see that the element of the RDF XML are referring to standard vocabulary. We use, for example, FOF and Dublin Core, Bio, and when any other vocabulary is available, we use the term of our ontology, OCD, for example, to describe a mandate. The difference between these two systems of representing information is that both are machine readable, but only the second one is also machine comprehensible. In this slide, I show the architecture of our system. All the components are open source. We start in a situation in which we add a lot of different data source system. I mentioned some of that, for example, the repository of the Parliamentary Act, the repository of Parliament document, and the repository of information regarding seating, database, law, and so on. We put the open linked data system as an overputting system at the moment. With a series of procedure, each data source system produce the format RDF XML of the information and data and transfer to a process that must validate and insert all this information in the endpoint, the endpoint Spark. That is the core that for the manager of this, for the managing of this information. The information and the RDF are then available for downloading using our site daticamera.it, and with a lot of query Sparkle, the data are available to be presented in a website, our historical portal. our data cover a period very, very large, because we cover more than 150 years of parliamentary story, from 1848 to today. And the size of these data sets is over 30 million of triples RDF. All these data are available for download in Data Camera IT. That is a short image of the site. And on Data Camera IT, every user can free download this data, this different data set, and reuse it. The format of this data are RDF, JSON, Turtle, and tree, so notation tree. So the end user can choose the format, and if user reuse this data, must respect the CC, the Common Creative License, that if user reuse the data, must mention the author and reuse the data with the same license. On this open linked data, we made the first application, the first apps. The new site, historical site, is the first application because it's completely based on the RDF data. Other example of the use of this open linked data are two simple application: the institutional atlas that display an interactive map of the birthday of the president, and another application that show the result of the election in the 19th century in a different city and different college, electoral college, district. Okay. This is what will be our prospect. The challenge will be to make linked open data part of the current processes, so that the data that we produce every day can be available in linked open data format and machine comprehensible format every day up to date. This will be also a system to communicate with our institution and other government. For example, we intend to reuse reciprocally the data between us and the Italian Senate. It could be a manner to avoid double work on the same data, or double input of the same data. And finally, we hope that other government will publish data in this format, because in this way we can realize a reciprocal reuse of the data regarding the public administration. I let here some reference of technical reference of our project, technical reference regarding the principle of linked open data, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We turn next to Officer of the Federal Parliament.
So there was a mistake. They only made a shortcut but did not copy the file. Sorry.
While we're waiting for the next presentation, the questions, do we have questions for Elena on the last presentation?
I have a question for Jeff. Is this a vote calling system?
Is it the what?
A vote calling system, this class?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay. And for Elena, impressive. This is really very nice.
Nicer than the Bell system. It's not machine readable. It's incomprehensible. You have to be here to see it.
Me, it's incomprehensible.
I should mention that I assume all of the presentation slides will be available on the website, both the Global Center and the House.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to show what Switzerland Parliament does with XML. My name is Andreas Sidler. I'm speaking German, Italian a little bit, and French, and also a little bit English. You can reach me on this address, however, if you have future questions. First of all, we have knowledge since a long time. We started with HTML. Maybe some from you remember what it means. HTML was the origin of XML. The only thing, when we talked about XML on the 90s, last century, nobody knows what it is. And since the 98, they published on the first time XML. Everybody understood, and for us, the only thing we changed from XML to HTML to XML, very easy, and everybody can understand, as you told me just before. Our most important database, we called it Curia. It's Latin Curia. And it's our business database we constructed on early on the 90s, last century. And this database on this time was designed for any application, but not for the internet. And we discovered on the time when we had used it at most of 20 years, we had performance problem. We had too many tables for requests, online requests, when we pushed the data to the internet. We decided to make a redesign from this database and to standardize all the interfaces. And even if we had XML fragments inside, we redesigned also the content. It was a big work. It took 1 year, and we switched on between December after Christmas and between New Year. In Switzerland, everybody is skiing at this time. It's a good time for IT to make upgrades and migrations. And on 2011, January, it must be the 6th or 7th January, we showed the new database with all the new contents. That's a picture. I don't worry. I don't want to explain all the tables. And it's only a concentration of the whole database. What are we doing with this database? This database is the content, major content of our website, www.parliament.ch, where you can find anything, information you can also find on other sites for other parliaments, of course. Maybe if you are looking on the button right, you can see we are on Twitter, and we also are on Facebook present. We have an app. The app is completely built by our own. and all the content comes live from this database, Curia. As we have also the Android market discovered, and we rebuilt the app once again. This was also an experience. You can use absolutely nothing than your experience when you construct two apps for Android and iPhone market. And we are really proud. We decide to, while we built the new database with the new interface, to give an open data interface, completely open for the public, with also instruction. You can use it for free, of course, and it is very used. We have a lot of feedback. To understand our architecture, I will just explain the problem we had before. We have Curia databases on the top in blue, and we have a lot of other databases, as you can find, I think, on almost of the parliaments in the world, also for example, for voting system. And our CMS at this time, before 2010, was connected to Curia, was connected to Swiss-based, as another database, to our database A, B, C, and so on. And we have a lot of application servers. They also are connected, has been connected to this Curia database, to Swiss-based, and the other databases, and we had a lot of interfaces. It's a really good application for the ID department, but it's not very efficient. But then, as we decided to redesign the architecture, we built a new interface, and all is based on web services. And the server in the middle, who makes the distribution for all the application server and also for our CMS systems, handle all the connections with all our databases. And while we have this web service, as you told before, it was quite easy to introduce a new application, this app, for use and provide a new service for the public. Very similar as you have seen before. This is a shortcut, a screenshot, sorry, you can find on our database, on our internet. And this is very, very easy to use. And we have a lot of people and a lot of feedback from users. Before it was so hard, before you had this web service, they called us and we have negotiation during weeks. We made a contract, how they have to use this content. Then we give them a content on a CD, and 3 weeks later they come back, oh, we need other contents too, and so on. It was also a good occupation for the ID service, but also not very efficient. Now, when we have contact from institutes almost, or libraries, we give them the address and say, help yourself, and it works. This just a few examples. If you are searching for members of parliament, this is the address, and you can, it, as you told before, has as XML file. You can, it has as HTML. Or for those who are using Java as a development environmental, also they have the opportunity to use these web services. Just some example for our entities, and the system is growing, still growing. We are not on the end of the development of these web services. Some facts, our new architecture, full service oriented architecture. It's completely open to outside, to the public. Everybody can use it. It's integrated in our old system as already. We don't make all the applications once again. It's upgradable. This web service are moving very fast, and you can use it on this address, however, if you are interested. Another application is electronic voting system. We have built this system by our own in '93. And at this time, it was completely closed. Nobody could go inside to have information, to read data, nothing. The mind changed completely in Switzerland. Since 4 years, you can have anything. And since last year, it's even possible to have this interface to look about an MP, how he's voting for an object, or also to download completely, since 4 years only, not older, the completely database in XML format for use for statistics almost, for example. We have an official bulletin. We published almost 20,000 papers on format A4 per year on both chambers. It's a lot of paper. And the edition we had 20 years ago, printed 3,000 books after each plenary session. Now we have, if I remember well, 150 printed. It's not very efficient, but we have still some libraries, and also for the archives, they don't like, even if we give them in XML, they would want it. They need paper. The official bulletin is, of course, also available on our internet, and the content is completely XML-based. We built our own system for content creation. I don't want that time is not. We have not enough time to explain the whole system. There are several components, and the database is XML-based, and also we have, of course, a digital audio recording. We are just moving from an old audio format to MP3 this week. And the product is XML-based, 100%. This gives you just a view how the XML editor, we built our own XML editor, looks like. There are a lot of features. I'm really sorry, I have not enough time to explain all this. And the XML produced, going on, let us completely automatic produce the internet content, and also the paper means, and the PDF file, of course, of the official bulletin. The system is very efficient to handle all these transcriptions, and you can even check yourself if you go to our website. Already we have plenary session now. We are sleeping in Switzerland. Almost of them. But if you are in Europe, if you are on time, you can watch if somebody is speaking, an MP is speaking and has finished his speech. Between 1 hour and 2 hours, you can find the text in a professional version on the internet. And the printout for the MP will be delivered maybe in 4 hours later. Yeah, and then they have 3 days to correct the text, and the minister have 7 days, of course, to make some corrections, and then we'll have the final version on the internet presented at this delay. Oops, just missed. We pilot also Web TV by this application automatically. The Web TV means Live Plus. We don't have not only the video, we also give you information who is speaking and give you the link to the matter who is treated at this time. And it's real time already. If the speaker is changing, the biography is changing already, and if the matter is changing, the link and information about the matter treated at this time is changing too. Yes, then I have finished with my poor English. I'm really sorry about, and you can find some more information at these links. Welcome to Twitter and to Facebook. Just a little joke. We have, Swiss Parliament has around 1,600 friends, I mean, and Roger Federer, also from Switzerland, has 14 million friends. Okay. That's the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I have only one question. Who's Roger Federer?
That was not a good question.
He plays some game.
Okay, he won last time.
Well, then that's important. We do have time before the coffee break for one or two questions for these very interesting presentations. Yes, Sarah.
I just wanted to share a comment from some of the people listening online on Twitter, and I was getting quite a few questions from folks saying, "What? No JSON? Why is everything in XML?" And so there were quite a few people who seemed impressed that you offered it up in JSON too. So that's just a comment.
Can I also answer? We both offered JSON.
Basically,
The mic. Thank you.
JSON is only a serializing format of RDF. So the information are managed as RDF triples. So they are only subject, predicate, and an object. We offer 4 different serialization, and JSON is one of that, for the download files, only for download. But the system runs with an endpoint Sparkle. So the basic format is RDF, not JSON.
It's quite similar. The whole format is XML, and we asked to some people, almost a university and industry institute, what kind of interface they would like. And we had as response XML, HTML, JSON, and others too. And finally, we decide for these 3 formats, HTML, XML, and JSON. That's the whole.
Very interesting. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right. Before we break for coffee, let me just mention a couple of things. We will want to resume promptly at 5 o'clock. We have quite a few things to cover at the end, so we'd be very grateful if you could be back here at that time. And one last comment, if I may. If you would be kind enough to be thinking about what in your mind are the major themes, major issues that emerged from this discussion so far, and bear in mind we have one more plus some things tomorrow. And which of those do you think in your minds need to be continued in some format going beyond this workshop, and how should we do that? Mr. Cassini will be asking some questions about that, and just want to let you think. Yes?
We're just speaking about standardization, so I had one question to Italy.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Excellent work, but we're just speaking about standardization. It seems to me Italy is working in 2 initiatives different. Was it didn't you take into account the study of the university? Was it a political decision, a technical decision?
The matter is that we don't want to create another standard, because a lot of standards also are set. There are different scope. In Italy, there is a need to have standard for the representative document regarding law legislation, and this is a matter. The other matter is to use existing standard to represent all the other information, because documents are only a little part of the domain of interest of a parliament. People don't want only document, want only information, data regarding the votes of deputy, data regarding the budget, and so on. So we should create an infinitive set of standard, but we don't want so, because V3C offer a lot of standard vocabulary for representative information. So let's use it if they are available.
I must pause. Perhaps you could continue at the coffee break. Thank you very much. We'll see you back here at 5.